Hello and welcome to this webinar on flexible reporting in Intella. My name is John Pearce and I'll be presenting this webinar today. So just a bit about my background. I've been involved with computer forensics and electronic discovery for approximately 13 years. I initially worked for the New Zealand Police as a digital forensic analyst and then moved to the corporate sector and worked for the forensic technology for Deloitte in New Zealand. So I've been a user of Intella since 2008 and have run many cases in Intella over this time. As mentioned in our previous webinar, these webinars are for a new type of training or information sharing concept that we're introducing. We did plan to run a webinar once a month, but the webinars will likely be increased to being run every 2 weeks. The webinars go into more detail about features or workflows when using Intella Connect or our new forensic tool W4. We'll also have guest speakers from time to time who will provide insight into other topics as well. So just before we get started into the webinar, let's have a quick look at what's coming up. So firstly, we will be releasing version 2.3.1 this month. That should be in very close. It's a week away or just over. So there's a number of new features in there. Some of those features are new formats being supported like APFS, Slack and BitLocker. We have a new feature for denisting or hash-based filtering of items during indexing phase. There's a new feature for colorized tags, which makes workflow and the tagging facet a lot better and easier. And you'll see a little bit of that in the demonstration today. And for Intella Connect, we have a new volume visualization as well. Moving forward to next month, we have Damien Atto from Spider Forensics as a guest speaker. So Damien will be giving a talk on e-discovery technology, past, present and future. This will be on January 7th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Note that the start time for that webinar is a lot earlier than the one we're doing today. But stay tuned anyway, because the information for that webinar will be posted on our website soon. But for today, we'll be looking at the new flexible reporting features in Intella. For clarity, we try and keep everyone's microphone muted. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat area and we'll go over them at the end of the presentation. So reporting in Intella. Before version 2.3, there was really no reporting in Intella. We certainly had various ways to export, and reports had to be built outside of Intella using other tools like Microsoft Word or Acrobat. So a few steps involved in that, and you had to export screenshots or the metadata tables in CSV format, and they all had to be put into those documents. So flexible reporting was introduced in Intella in version 2.3, and it includes now a dedicated reporting wizard, which allows the user to create nice looking professional reports all within Intella itself. So there's various options for sorting, styling and customization inside that reporting wizard, which we'll go through to in this webinar. The reporting wizard has been also added to Intella Connect. It's not in the current version of Connect, but it will be available in the upcoming release version 2.3.1. And the reporting wizard is actually already in our forensic triage tool W4. So instead of going via PowerPoint and just showing slides of the reporting features, what I thought I might do is do a live demonstration of how the reporting works in Intella. So first of all, when you're creating a report, you need some items to report on, and that usually comes about by the user or investigator doing some searches over a case and search keyword searches, date ranges or other sort of filtering searches, and then reviewing some items and then finding items or artifacts that are relevant to the investigation. and those are normally tagged. What we suggest for reporting is when you find those items that you tag them in a structure like what you see on the screen here. Incidentally, these are the new colorized tag format that we have added to Intella as well. So in this particular case, I have tag number 8, which is items for report, and then I have some sub tags in there for the specific types that I want to report on. So I have images, documents, website activity, there's some recently accessed items and some calendar items. And I structure it in this way because in the flexible reporting, you can create sections for each of these types, and those sections can have different layouts and different metadata assigned to them. So if you have them all sort of separated like this, then you've got a lot more flexibility when you create the report. So creating a report is very similar to doing an export. In fact, it uses the same wizard. The same way you would export items from Intella, you run a search on the top level tag there, select the cluster, and then I'm using Control A to select all of the items in the table, and then you would use your right-click export selection, and you bring up the exporting wizard here. But what we've done is we've added a report function down the bottom here. So you'd select the report function, but everything else is pretty much the same. Destination folder to where you want to path your report to, and you can use a template. Now I've got a template already set up, and that's because it's got all these sections already created in there, and we'll talk all about the sections shortly. Templates can be saved right on the last screen, which we'll go through as well. The first slide or window here talks about the title page. So this is the front page of the report. And you can put a title in there. This can be any text that you want to put in there. I've just put a simple forensic report, and that will get put in the center of the screen in a large font. Below that, we have options to put logos. The top logo is the top right logo. We have a center logo as well, which is a little bit bigger. By default, these are just set to our Vound and Intella logos, but you can go and change and select whatever company logo you have that you want to put in there. If you don't want logos, you can turn the features off completely. Below that, we have custom fields. So this is where you'd have information about the report on the front page. In this case, we have basic report information like the author of the report, the case ID. You might want to add something like the date. I think it's the 3rd in the US, 2019, and then that field will be put on the front page of the report. You can remove a field by clicking on the remove button there. So now we move into the sections screen, and this is really the epicenter or where the flexibility in reporting comes in. So you can see I have 5 tags with items in that I want to report on, and I've got 5 categories. So those are the tags I have. And basically, if you click on one of those categories, then you get all the different properties for that particular category. So in this case, for that category, I'm going to put a title in. These are documents accessed. And we're going to put a description in here. So this section shows the documents that have been accessed by the user. And this is where so if you wanted to highlight specific documents in the report that, are the smoking gun documents that needed to be brought out in more detail, this is where you'd write it here. So, I'm saying note that these items are company documents that show product formula and the board minutes for that date. These are the documents which the user sent to a competitor. I mean, I just made this up, but that's where you would put that type of information. You want to display this in different formats. So in this particular case, we've got table format and we've got item ID there as well. And for documents and website activity, that table format is sort of what we'd use there. We want, there's several columns, so we want it wide. So we use landscape as well. And then for something like images, might be a little bit different. We'd use the image gallery, landscape, so we want it wide there as well, but we want how many images across the page, which would be 4 in this case, but that can be set to whatever you want there, up to 8. And with images, we're going to include the original files as well. And you can also include the extracted text if you want to do that. For the calendar items and the recently accessed items, these are all going to be shown in list view. And once we get the report exported, we'll go through and I'll show you how that all looks. For each of these categories, you can configure the columns you want to show. So for the recently accessed, there's an item ID, so that's always probably in each of the categories because you want to reference back to where that is in the case, but there's not much information on recently used apart from the last access date. Something like calendar items would use more specific fields like the start date and end date, so those are calendar type fields there. Images, your content created and content last modified, also got MD5 hash in some of these as well because that's sort of more for forensics so that you can see the fingerprint of the file. And basically websites, the subject is actually the website URL. Unfortunately it's under the subject field, but I'll show you how we can adjust that later on. And the time it was visited as well. And for our documents, it's just some sort of standard fields here, file name, created date, and modified date there as well. A section can be added by just clicking on Add Section, and you get options here of either adding a type or the tags. So if I wanted to add these spreadsheets as a new section, I could do that. Just be aware that if I add that now, the spreadsheets won't come out in the report because I haven't selected them. So basically what you'd do is you'd search on these spreadsheets, you'll create a new tag under here as spreadsheets, and then you'll create your report and you'd include those spreadsheets in the selection. You can change a category. So the category is the tag in this case. And the reason why you'd change a category is on the last page, we can save this as a template, but you might want to use this template in another case, and maybe the tags are named differently or they're set out differently. So what you can do then, and in the new case, is change category and go point to the tags that are relevant for those categories. And of course, you can remove a section if you want to do that. So let's go ahead and go next. Here's some other settings that you might want to turn on and turn off. I've got most of these on because I just want to show you what they look like inside the created report. So headers and footers, the report title that we saw on the first page, that can be put into the footer. We can show the page numbers in the footer as well. Table of contents, we can include one of those. In this particular report, you'll see that it's not very big, but for a large report with hundreds of pages, that could be useful because in the table of contents you can click on the particular page you want and it will flick you straight through to that page. There's a summary section if you want to add that, and that will show you the sources and the types of items that are in the report. We have an errors option here. Now this is nothing to do with the report itself. This is sort of works on the side, and it's just to show you that once the report has been created, if there are any errors, if something couldn't be exported or something couldn't be accessed, then that will come up as an error and you can review your errors. And lastly, we have the output format, and it can be exported in either PDF or Microsoft Word document. I'm going to go Microsoft Word document for this particular report. We go on next. And then we have the basically what you see every time you do an export from Intella is just a sort of a summary page of the options that you've selected. You can read through that, make sure that's all right. And then we also have the Save Export Template option here. So what I'm going to do, because I made some changes, I'm going to select the report template that I was using, and I'll just change the number on the end there so that I create a brand new template with those changes in it. And then lastly, you just start the report export. And there's only 25 items, so that doesn't take very long to run. Once it opens, here it is. So this is the output. Basically, I'll just zoom out a little bit. Your logos, top right and in the center, they can be changed to whatever you want to have. There's our report title, name, and there's our customizable sort of fields that we want on the front page. Table of contents, as I said, you can just control click onto these areas here and they'll take you straight to those pages. This is the summary page. So it talks about what sources have the items been exported from or reported on. In this case, I've only have one source, and the types of items that are being reported, and they're broken down to item numbers there as well. And then we get into the sections themselves. And in this case, the document access, you can see the text that I wrote about the particular documents that are being reported on here and what it means about them. With creating reports, the column widths when you're using a table format are set, and so that is why I created a Word document report here. So you can actually go in and you can go and alter these to how you want to set them up, and then from that point you could create a another PDF version of the report once you've done all that adjustment. So you can make it all sort of work out a lot better for visual reading. Website activity, same thing with the columns. You can move them around if you want. The subject, we had subject here. That was the field name, and you can't change it in the report wizard making the report, but we can now change that to URL. And we can save that, and then that can be printed to a PDF as a final report. Here's our images section. So the images are just shown in these sort of large thumbnails. Of course, if you have less on a page, you'll get a bigger thumbnail. And also these items, they're exported as well because we tick that option so they can be accessed directly from the report. Calendar items, so this is list view. This is what you get in list view, basically the calendar item, and then we have our metadata below that. And lastly, the recently accessed items, same list view type format, the item, and below that. You'll see that some of them don't have a last access date. That's because there is no last access date for that specific item. So Intella is just showing you what information is there. Of course, there are other fields that you can add in the report wizard as well if you want to add other fields. And that's pretty much it for reporting. Really quite simple and easy to use. And I'll take some questions if there are any. My colleague Jacqueline's going to read them out. I think at this stage there is only one question that I can see, and it's any idea when Connect 231 might be released. Both Connect and Intella 231 will be released very shortly. I don't know a specific date, but I'm picking it will be within the next week or 2 weeks. And it doesn't look like there are going to be many questions today. So other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar today. As I said, we have Damien Atto on the 7th of January next year. He'll be doing a presentation. Keep your eyes on the website for more details on that. And once again, thank you for attending.